Good morning, Sorsogon State University. So before I start, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Jerry S. Digo for inviting me to this fruitful webinar about research. And this is my first time actually na mag-present sa inyong school, Sorsogon State University. Usually, I am always invited sa aming division, no, which is the Division of Quezon City here in Metro Manila. And this is my first time to be one of the guest speakers in a webinar na nasa ibang division. No? So lalo na nasa ibang probinsya pa. So thank you so much, Mr. Jerry S. Digo, for having me this morning. So actually, let me start first by sharing you my experience as a teacher researcher. No? So as a teacher researcher, I have been exposed to so many researches, lalo na kapag nag-aral ka sa De La Salle, no? Kasi I graduated at De La Salle Araneta University. I finished my master's degree there. And most of our subjects in De La Salle, it's research-based. So halos lahat ng subjects namin is puro mga research yung outputs namin o yung final requirement namin. So sobrang tagtag kami sa researches and we have to present those researches. So hindi lang siya more on write-ups, but also we have to present it to our professors, and they had to be the mentors or critic dun sa aming ginawa. It's like you're doing your thesis defense in every subject in De La Salle. So sobrang purgang-purga when it comes to research. So i-share ko sa inyo this morning yung knowledge ko about presentation in research, no? Kasi I have been in local and international research conferences. So this is my hobby every year. I present my action research and also some innovations that I had that I did with my school, and also my experiences whenever I present my research papers. So one of the most unforgettable thing or experience that I had was when I presented my research last 2021. No? I had a chance to deliver my action research presentation to a group of professionals. And as someone who is very much interested in research, kasi I'm a research teacher in senior high school, and I am also the research coordinator in our school. So I am handling all the researches of my colleagues, of my co-teachers, and I had to do a lot of checking. I had to critique their work. No, so I am very much engrossed with research. No, so yung mga international conferences, local or kahit naman local conferences, I took it as an opportunity to actually improve my speaking skills and also my ability to deliver my presentations. No? Kasi whenever we join this kind of presentations, maski naman local or international, that's an opportunity for us to improve ourselves, lalo na if we are facing professionals or with our co-educators. You can improve your presentations, how you present yourself, and the PowerPoint presentations, how you prepare them, how you speak in front of them, how you manage your thoughts. So it's very important that you have that kind of experience as teachers. Kasi it's a lifelong process naman talaga when we enter this kind of profession. No? We cannot stop ourselves from learning, from digging things, from researching, from analyzing everything. So actually giving an oral presentation to a large number of people, most especially if they are professionals, we all know na medyo nakakakaba siya, no? So you don't feel comfortable at all. So yes, hindi naman mawawala yung ganon. And ako din naman, nafe-feel ko rin naman yon, even though I have experience presenting my researches internationally and locally. But then just take it as a good experience, no? So kasi hindi naman tayo magi-improve if we don't practice doing what scares us. So kailangan kung ano yung kinakabahan tayo, kung ano yung takot tayong gawin, yun yung gawin pa natin ng gawin so that we can practice ourselves whenever we face professionals or colleagues natin sa field natin. And a good thing about it is ginagawa natin siya ngayon virtually. So medyo less yung kaba kahit papaano kasi hindi mo sila nakakaharap, hindi mo nakikita yung mga mukha nila, and most of the time nakasara yung mga naka-off kami yung mga audience natin, no. So medyo less yung kaba on that part. But then take also an opportunity na mag-present din tayo ng papers natin face to face, no. So kapag pwede na siguro tayong present ng papers natin face to face. So actually in research conferences, hindi natatapos 'yon sa pag-present lang ng paper. We also have the question and answer part, which is isa rin sa mga nakakakabang portion, no? Kasi even though naisip na natin lahat ng possible questions na pwedeng itanong sa atin, there are still some questions that the audience would ask us na hindi natin ina-expect ito yung itatanong. So no matter how prepared we are and how many questions ang isipin natin, hindi tayo talaga magiging prepared when it comes to the question and answer portion of coming from our audience, no, from our co-teacher researchers. Kasi syempre, they are curious also with your research. But then after that, after the question and answer, and if you know your research by heart, masasagot natin yun, no? So that's really important that na whatever you present to your to these professionals, to your audience, dapat alam mo kung ano yung pine-present mo. Alam mo yung content and dapat napag-aralan mo siya. At alam mo yung pasikot-sikot doon sa iyong presentation. And let's also avoid the notion na whenever you are in conferences, para kang ginigisa. When in fact, in reality, all of the people in conferences, international man or local, they are very friendly and supportive, and they are part of the audience because they are giving suggestions para mas ma-improve natin yung research papers natin and yung presentations natin. And also, with their suggestion, probably we can think of another research topic that we could have for our presentation. So, para makapagpasa pa ulit tayo ng mga presentations natin sa mga susunod na call for papers na nakikita natin online. So, for my discussion today, this will be the flow. So, the first part will be the tips on presenting researches in local and international conferences. So we will answer the questions about what we have to prepare before presenting our study, or how are we going to prepare for it if we are required to submit a pre-recorded presentation. Ayan, kasi sometimes conferences would ask you to submit a pre-recorded presentation of your research, lalo na kung virtual siya, no? Usong-uso na yan ngayon kasi this is one way to one of the reasons kung bakit sila nag-ask ng ganyan, kasi there are times na makaka-experience tayo ng technical problems kapag nagpe-present. So to avoid those kind of problems, the presenters, they are required to submit their presentations, pre-recorded presentation. The second part of my talk will be about the flow of oral presentations at research conferences in both local and international. So we will find out the typical flow of research presentations. So ano bang nangyayari? Ano ba yung flow ng research presentations dapat? And then lastly, the third part of my talk for today will be the standard format of visual presentations used in research conferences or yung mga PowerPoint na ginagamit natin kapag tayo magpe-present. So I will be showing you examples of PowerPoint slides that I used during my international presentation and the video recording of my research presentation kasi we were required to submit a pre-recorded research presentation, and then I will be showing that to you. And I hope that my talk this morning will inspire all of you to finally decide on submitting your research papers for local and international presentations. And also, pag nagsasubmit tayo ng presentations natin, kadugtong na nun yung publication. So sana makapag-publish din tayo. So let's start with the oral presentation tips. So I have here actually 6. So in this slide, there are only 3. So the next 3 will be on the next slide. So for the first one, we have the timing. So it's important that you take note of this. You have to find out how long your talk should be. So as you decide what to present in your research, consider that a 15-minute talk, usually yan yung length ng presentation sa mga research conference. You have to present your research in just 15 minutes or the maximum would be 20 minutes. It differs from a 45-minute lecture. So hindi tayo nasa classroom. We are not inside the classroom that we have to discuss this in 1 hour or 45 minutes. So it's just 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So if you only have 15 minutes, you will need to focus on the essential points. So hindi dapat tayo nagbibigay ng mga points na which we think is not really relevant for our presentation. So as much as possible, you should practice. So one way to do this is timeran natin yung sarili natin na habang nagpa-practice tayo, no? So while we are speaking in front with our presentation, we need to have a timer para maisip natin or makita natin kung hanggang saan na ba yung presentation natin. So time yourself while you are giving your talk and make cuts if you need to. So kung ito ay pre-recorded, that's a good thing kasi you can cut. Halimbawa, you can discuss the first 5 minutes of your presentation and then you cut. And then you go on with your another 10 minutes of your presentation and then you cut. So you can edit your video presentation. That's the good thing about pre-recorded presentation. But if you do it live, of course, hindi na siya pwede i-edit. Yun na yun. Okay? So, and most of the time, if we are going to present live, yung conference or your organization hosting the conference, they will record your presentation with your consent naman. So it's okay. Actually, if you're going to pre-record your presentation, it's really okay that you end a bit early. So okay na yung hindi mo na maximize yung 15 minutes. But then, ang hindi lang siguro maganda is yung sumobra tayo ng 15 minutes. Kasi going over time actually shows your lack of preparation. Ibig sabihin, you cannot really follow the guidelines or the instruction. Pag sinabing 15 minutes, it should be just 15 minutes or less. Hindi tayo pwedeng mag 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And given the fact that you are not the only one who will present your presentation or your research, and there are other co-presenters who needs to present also, you have to take note that the reason why the organizers gave you 15 minutes only is because meron pang ibang magpe-present. So do not wait until the last minute to make your presentation. So you only have 15 minutes to speak. So as much as possible, ma-maximize mo lang 15 minutes na yun at masabi mo lahat ng dapat mong sabihin. The second one is we have the audience. It's important to know your audience. You need to find out what sort of audience will listen to your presentation. So most likely, if we are going to present in local conferences, so syempre mga Pilipino sila, sometimes we are allowed to do code switching. Yung nagpapalit tayo ng from English, we move to Filipino, speaking in Filipino, and then so on and so forth. But if you're going to present in an international conference, You have to make sure that you need, lalo na if you have audience na galing sa ibang bansa, like for example, they're coming from Korea or China, Japan, you have to speak in English because that's the language that they could understand. And it will be unfair if you have one Korean audience and then nagtatagalog ka dun sa conference, no? So, mau-OP siya, ma-out of place siya sa presentation. Specialists in your field, so we have different fields, no? For example, my expertise will be on English and others would be from mathematics naman, science. So it depends as to whatever field you are specializing. You have to know, you have to consider that, for example, if your audience are halo-halo yung kanilang specialization, you have to make your presentation acceptable or understandable by the general audience. So you have to make sure that everyone can understand your presentation. You cannot use words or technical terms or acronyms or jargons that hindi lahat makakaintindi. Kasi there are some terms, for example, in science that we cannot really understand, lalo na if we are not into science subject. But if you are in a group of people that you have the same specialization or interest, then there's no problem about it. So with a broad audience, you need to ask yourself what educated people not in your field will know, and you have to define any terms that may be unfamiliar to them. So kailangan natin i-define kung meron man tayo mga words na gagamitin na medyo malalim o yung mga technical terms and jargons na hindi natin maiiwasan na sabihin during the presentation. And you have to make an effort to explain the significance of your research in terms of the listener para mas maintindihan nila, lalo na if they are not, you don't share the same specialization. Kailangan nilang maintindihan what is the significance of your research. The third one is we have the content. So in the content, of course, since you are the author of your research, dapat hindi na questionable yung content kasi dapat alam mo na yan kasi ikaw yung gumawa. So oral presenters may often think that they need to explain every single thing they know. So actually, this is not true. Presenting research at a conference is an excellent opportunity to think about the big picture rather than focusing on details. Of course, you joined a research conference and expect mo na yan that your audience are knowledgeable when it comes to research. So you don't have to lecture them that the background of the study will be the contents of my research, ganyan. You don't have to define what's in there because they already know, they have knowledge about it. Alam nila kung ano yung lalamanin ng bawat part. So you don't have to explain in detail. Just highlight whatever that is needed to be highlight and all the essential things on your research. So this can be hard if you are immersed so much with the specific. So wag tayo masyadong in detail, no? Lalo na if you're only given 15 to 20 minutes to present our research paper. So mahihirapan tayo sa part na yon na i-summarize natin lahat ng mga importante. So dapat marunong tayong mamili lang whatever is important in the presentation. So you can step back before you become an expert on your particular field, and then you can ask yourself, nung ako ba ay hindi pa interested in mathematics, for example, ano ba yung nag-spark ng interest ko? So you might want to think of that, and then you might want to use that, and then answer the question. You might want to use that answer to actually get the interest of your audience. So it's really exciting on that part, lalo na if you are diverse with your specialization sa isang conference, no? Kasi you learn a lot from other fields also. So hindi lang siya about math, hindi lang about sciences, hindi lang about English, hindi lang about literature, hindi lang about medicine, and so on and so forth. You get to be exposed with other topics that you might want to integrate in your future research. The fourth one is organization. So it's important that your presentation should have beginning, middle, and end. So just like when you are writing essays, no? When we are writing essays, when we were studying in high school, our teacher would always tell us, dapat meron kang beginning, middle, and ending paragraph. So introduction, body, and conclusion. Just like in presenting your researches, you should also have that kind of format. So the suggested format for this is, at first, you can introduce yourself. You can tell us your name, the title of your research, saan ka galing, what is your affiliation or school or organization. And then you can present your research question. You can also, bago pala yun, you can also give a background about your study. And then you can present your research question. And then you can describe how you conducted your research and explain what you found out dun sa result, and then what it means, kung ano implication niya. And then afterwards, at the end, you can conclude, give recommendations, summarize everything, and so on and so forth. And then you can present your references, and you can give your final words to your audience. So meron pa rin tayong sinusunod na format. Hindi pwedeng when we present, we go directly to the statement of the problem, and then result, and then conclusion. So we need to give a little background about our research and about our presentation. So depende sa topic na pinipili natin, you have to, again, you have to highlight whatever is the significance of your study, no? So kailangan malaman niya ng mga audience natin. And do not be distracted about your presentation. Kasi part of organizing your presentation is that kailangan hindi ka ma-off track. So your focus is your presentation. You cannot integrate another presentation or another research that you have conducted. So dapat focus lang tayo dun sa research na pine-present natin. So once you have provided sufficient background, you bring focus to your research by reminding your audience of your research question. So it's important that you establish your research question. It should be clear to your audience na this is your research question. So dapat yun yung ma-achieve mo at the end of your presentation. And please take note that do not even think of opening your presentation or your PowerPoint presentation until you have organized your ideas. So napakahirap kasi na nakapresent na yung ating presentation, and then tsaka pa lang tayo mag-iisip ng sasabihin natin. Prior to opening our presentation or showing our presentation, dapat alam na natin kung ano yung sasabihin natin, alam na natin yung introduction natin, and so on and so forth. The next one is we have the tone, okay? So it is best to approach your prepared presentation as a formal occasion. So you have to treat your audience and of course your research presentation with respect. So dapat, since you are joining a professional gathering and your audience are professionals, educators, or even scientists, or some researchers na magagaling talaga sa field nila, you should look at it as a formal occasion. Para siyang, it's a formal event. So you have to dress na maayos, it's formal, you have to speak formal, you have to approach everyone with respect. So even if you know everyone, for example, you know your audience, and you still need to introduce yourself. You have to show them, or you have to tell them your name and affiliation, and avoid addressing your audience na parang kabarkada natin siya, even though dahil kakilala natin sila, you don't address them in a way na parang friends natin sila, no? So address them with respect. So you have to dress neatly, of course, because you are facing your professional audience. And para ka lang nagde-defense kasi di ba pag tayo nagde-defense, kailangan maayos yung suot natin. And most of all, share your enthusiasm for your subject. Show us na you are very much enthusiastic in presenting your research and hindi yung parang napipilitan or parang nasa-stress, no? Kasi although behind those presentation or behind those experience na nakaka-stress naman talaga. But then you still need to stand there and show your strength. Ipakita natin na tayo yung gumawa nun at kaya natin i-defend yon sa kanila at kaya natin i-present sa maayos. Let's give justice to our research presentation or research paper. And then the last one is we have to practice. So we have to practice speaking slowly and clearly. So kahit 15 minutes lang siya or 20 minutes, make sure that you are pronouncing the words correctly and clearly. Kasi sometimes dahil we only have 15 to 20 minutes to present our work, the tendency is that para magkasya lahat-lahat, nagmamadali tayo magsalita. So, nasa-sacrifice yung clarity ng pagsasalita natin, the words that we are using, no? So, nahihirapan din yung audience natin na maintindihan kung ano yung gusto nating sabihin sa kanila. So, lalo na if we want to emphasize important points in our research. So, you have to speak slowly. Hindi naman sobrang bagal, but then to the point that your audience will understand whatever you are saying. So, you don't need to read your presentation, whatever is on the screen, kasi the audience can read that. So the reason why you have your PowerPoint presentation while you are presenting is because that will serve as your guide. Parang cues mo lang yan na ito yung pag-uusapan natin, ito yung sasabihin mo, this will be your topic, this will be your subtopic. But as much as possible, do not read whatever is on the PowerPoint presentation or to your slide presentation. It would be best if you just speak enough lang na mga points or yung mga important points lang or yung highlighted points lang na gusto mong sabihin dun sa presentation. But kasi there are times that we put so much words in one slide na isang buong paragraph siya and it's overwhelming. Kahit naman siguro estudyante, if they see a slide presentation na isang buong paragraph, napakahirap intindihin, nakaka-boring ng tingnan. So, I would suggest that you can do it in bullet form para hindi siya masyadong bombarded sa mata ng mga audience. And of course, part of practicing is you have to time yourself and make cuts. Kung kailangan mag-cut. Kung kailangan umulit, lalo na kung pre-recorded naman siya. And if you're doing it live, make sure before you do it live, nakapag-practice ka rin so that maiwasan natin yung mga errors. Kung meron man mga mistakes na mangyayari, minimal na lang siya. So now let's move on to the standard flow of research presentation. So ano ba yung usually nangyayari in a research presentation whenever we present our paper? So first, we have the opening slide. You will present your opening slide. So it includes the research title, name of the authors. Kung isa lang, author lang. Kung marami, kailangan mong ilagay yung mga name ng author, no? So hindi pwedeng kapag tatlo kayong author, ikaw lang yung ilalagay mo. Hindi pwedeng ganon. So dapat nakalagay din yung names nila kahit hindi sila kasama sa presentation. And also affiliations. Usually kung saang school ka nang galing or saan mo na-conduct yung research na yon. The second one is background of the study or the context of your research. So you have to indicate the brief background or introduction of your study. So dapat maikli lang, brief background lang kasi you cannot give talaga the entire background of your study because you only have, for example, 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Very limited yung time ninyo. So dapat kung ano lang yung important details about your background and you think that's enough for the audience to understand where you are coming from, yun lang yung ibibigay natin sa audience natin. You can follow actually the inverted triangle in discussing this. So you start first with the current, for example, your topic is about the education system in the Philippines. For example, sa reading, mababa yung reading comprehension ng students. So you can start with the education system in the Philippines. Ano yung status natin sa reading, sa kabuuan, and then you can narrow it down going to your school's status when it comes to reading comprehension. So it's an inverted pyramid kasi you start with the big concept, you start with the big one, big information, and then you narrow it down papunta dun sa target mo or yung sa mga respondents mo. Number 3 is we have the research objectives or problems. So you just have to be clear in your objectives. You have to state the questions that you have, that you are answering, that you will answer on your presentation. We also have the methodology. You have to specify the methods that you use in your study. So this is the part where you can spark interest from your audience kasi they will feel curious about how you came up with your result doon sa iyong research paper. And also, we have the results. Siyempre, ibibigay natin yung result natin sa presentation natin. So you have to make sure that all the questions in the research problems were answered clearly. So halimbawa, if you have 3 research questions, make sure that those 3 research questions were answered in your presentation sa result. Dapat yung tatlong yun. Hindi pwedeng yung isa lang, hindi pwedeng yung dalawa lang. So dapat kumpleto yun. Kasi makikitaan tayo ng loophole doon sa result natin kapag kulang-kulang yung nakalagay na information. We can also discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the study. So you have to be honest with the strengths and weaknesses of your study. There is no perfect research. And remember that the weaknesses that you can identify in your research can be a bridge of improvement for your next research papers, no? So pwede kasing na-identify mo yung weakness ng research mo, and then when you conduct another research, you would know na ito yung weakness ko dati, so hindi ko na siya uulitin ngayon. So you have to address those kind of weaknesses. And also, pag na-address natin yung weaknesses natin, we are honest in expressing that this is the weakness of our study. It can also spark ideas from the audience. No, naiisip nila na probably I can conduct a research na mas na-improve. So, pwede silang makaisip ng topic na related doon sa iyong study. And then we have conclusions and recommendations. So, do not forget to conclude whatever you have mentioned in your study. So, this will actually help the audience to summarize whatever you have presented in front of them. And also, the recommendation is essential then, because this is one way to suggest future researches related to your study. So do not think of it as unfavorable siya. It's a negative thing kasi you are sharing ideas to your audience. Kasi actually this will be helpful for everyone in your field kasi they could contribute something to your field. And also, they can cite you as their references kasi sa'yo nila nakuha yung idea about that research. So for the references, on the last part, you can also present this one. So some research conferences do not require oral presenters to show their references because these are actually readily available whenever someone reads your entire research paper. Kasi nandiyan na yan eh. Automatically, when you do your research paper, meron naman talaga tayong references. So sometimes hindi na siya kailangan i-present. However, if you still have time naman in your presentation, you can show this to your audience para din makita nila anong year yung mga references mo, saan mo nakuha yung mga ideas mo or yung pinagkuhanan mo ng mga related literature and studies. So now I will be presenting to you a sample presentation, a slide presentation from my from my conferences, international conference in De La Salle, Araneta University. It happened last 2021, third DLSAU International Multidisciplinary Research Conference. This is the PowerPoint presentation that I used. And pinili ko lang din yung mga slides na ipapakita ko which are relevant to this talk, to this webinar. So it would be best if you will treat your PowerPoint presentation as a helpful tool kasi yan yung mag-guide sa'yo as you go on with your presentation. And you can use it to incorporate images into your presentation. And you can use it also to emphasize some important points. So how are you going to emphasize them? You can actually underline, i-boldface, pwede rin natin silang i-highlight. And this will also guide your audience in following whatever you are saying or presenting to them. It would be best if you're going to use it as a cue or as something na mag-guide lang sa'yo. So this means that kapag tayo gumagawa ng PowerPoint presentation, we should not present too much information. Yung sinasabi ko na isang buong paragraph, isang slide. So iwasan natin yung mga ganon. Because the audience cannot read a long section of text and simultaneously, they are also listening to you. So nakikinig sila sa'yo and then you are presenting them a very long paragraph. So mahihirapan sila anong focus? Magbasa ng paragraph sa iyong presentation or makinig sa'yo. So para hindi ma-stress ang audience natin na makinig sa atin, sa ating presentation, I suggest na wag masyadong wordy yung ating slides. And if you really need to provide a long quotation, for example, or a long data about it, you have to highlight. Kung hindi talaga may iwasan na maglagay tayo ng mahabang-mahaba, at least highlight the words and phrases na gusto nating i-emphasize. And when we present that, we have to read it aloud, slowly, so that the audience can absorb it. Yun yung tatatak sa kanila kasi yun yung narinig nila ng malakas at slowly na nanggaling sa atin. And then you have to discuss it. When you discuss it, you have to explain it to your audience. And to avoid so much explanation, we can use charts and graphs, lalo na if we are presenting the result of the study. We have to discuss the result of the study. We can use chart, no? So instead of just paragraph, i-chart natin yung result o kaya naman i-graph natin yung result. Kasi in just one glance, makikita na natin agad, maintindihan agad ng audience kung ano yung result ng iyong study. And mas malinaw siyang intindihin, no? Kasi hindi na siya kailangan basahin pa para maintindihan. Kailangan lang siyang tignan ng audience. Magigets niya na agad kung ano yung result ng iyong study. And also, please avoid making fancy PowerPoint presentation, lalo na yung with moving objects or images or graphics, unless importante yung mga yun, no? Or they play a big role on your presentation. Kasi hindi naman tayo nagpe-present sa mga bata. Hindi tayo nagpe-present sa mga estudyante. We are presenting in front of professionals, our co-educators, our someone who are engrossed in research. Talaga mga researchers sila. So, hindi necessary yung masyadong makulay na presentation, lalo na yung mga moving objects. If the topic that you are going to discuss or the topic of your research is somewhat related to conducting it sa mga elementary students o kaya naman sa kinder, pre-elementary students, or even high school, then you can probably put something na magagrasp agad na yung study niya is about students, no? So, halimbawa elementary. So, pwede tayo maglagay ng images dyan na medyo catchy na it is related naman kasi dun sa topic natin. But if it's not related, then avoid putting so much images and moving objects on your presentation. Also, when we are presenting the PowerPoint presentation, we have to be prepared to give our talk na halimbawa nagkaroon ng technical problem. Kasi we cannot really rely on technology all the time. So there are times na the PowerPoint presentation doesn't look good on the screen. Sa akin, okay. Tapos sa audience, hindi siya okay. For example, yung mga charts natin na nilagay sa slides, hindi sila pantay-pantay pagdating dun sa presentation. O kaya naman ay kalahati lang ng screen yung nakikita, nagkaroon ng problem. You have to make sure that you can still deliver your presentation even if there is a technical problem. And yun nga, para ma-avoid yon, always have a backup of pre-recorded presentation. If you're doing it face-to-face, for instance, and then nagkaroon ng ganong klaseng problem, you should have plan B. And plan B could be you have a printout of your presentation that you could hand to your audience para maka-follow din sila sa iyong presentation. So this one is the first slide of my presentation. The title is Spicing Up the Teaching of Reading Through Kagan Cooperative Learning Approach. I have here my co-author who is also my advisor in De La Salle, Dr. Socorro E. Aguja. So I included my name and also the name of my co-author kasi gano'n naman talaga dapat. And we also included kung saan kami galing. It's De La Salle Araneta University. So the next slide would be the introduction. No? So as you could see, it's not by paragraph na isang mahabang paragraph. Usually kasi ganun yung nakikita natin. No. But I only chose 4 paragraphs that would actually introduce my presentation or my research. Naglagay din ako dyan ng mga citations. No? For example, ito si Amadi and Cristobal and Nava, and also the last part of my introduction. So with this, may mga sinite akong mga tao or mga studies or mga researchers. I can establish that my research is based on the study of Amadi, Cristobal, and also Nava. And the information that I am given is reliable kasi nga may sinasite akong mga tao or mga references dito sa aking introduction. Next one is I had to introduce also kasi this is a strategy sa English that I used for my students. So I had to introduce Kagan Cooperative Learning Approach to my audience. So ano ba yung Kagan? Kasi not everyone can understand it. So ito yung sinasabi natin na kung hindi natin may iwasan gumamit ng mga jargon o kaya mga technical terms, then we have to explain that to our audience. So I define what is Kagan Cooperative Learning Approach, and I put some pictures here that would actually give meaning to what is Kagan. Na kahit di nila basahin ito, but by just looking at the pictures, they would understand that this is Kagan. And I had to also quote the author of Kagan Cooperative Learning Approach na sila Kagan din. Next one is also the introduction because from Kagan, I used 3 strategies. Think, pair, share, 3-step interview, and gallery walk. So I had to also explain what are these things, what are these strategies, and I also included some pictures na related doon sa strategy na ginamit ko. And after that, I had to discuss the implementation theory. So how did I go about it? Paano ko siya ginawa? So you have there the pre-implementation, the during implementation, and post-implementation. So you have to tell us how did it start, ano yung umpisa, anong ginawa mo during the implementation, and then anong ginawa mo nung after mong ma-implement. So I also included the name of the intervention, which is Project PIES, kasi yan yung name ng intervention na ginawa ko dito sa aking study. And then afterwards, I also presented my research problem. So ito na yung tatlong research problem. No? It's important to include this in the presentation kasi dito iikot yung result ng ating study. Also, on the next part, we have the methodology. So under the methodology, I discussed the research design, sino yung participants, who are the respondents, and also the research instruments. Ano yung mga instrument na ginamit ko dito sa aking research? So, in just one slide, na-discuss ko na yung tatlo. Okay, nandiyan na yung design, participants, and research instruments. So, I don't have to write it in paragraph form, but then bullet form siya. Okay, so para mas tipid din sa slide presentation. And then the next one, ito na yung result. Example lang ito ng slide for the result. So, for example, ito yung first question ko about the significant change in the reading level of the student participants before and after intervention. So I have to put their number 1 kasi that's my number 1 research problem. And then I had to put a title about it related dun sa question number 1 and then present ko na yung kanyang result. I use table kasi ganito talaga yung itsura niya kapag nag-present ng result sa pre-test and post-test. No? So I had to use Wilcoxon signed rank test. So para ma-present ko siya ng hindi solutions, table na lang. Okay? And then I also provided a short explanation about it. Even though during the presentation, ina-explain ko naman ano yung ibig sabihin nitong mga numbers na ito. And then after ma-present yung mga result, we can have now the implications. Nandito na yung conclusion, recommendation, and then ano yung impact niya sa mga students or sa teachers, sa ibang researchers, and we can recommend some things na gusto nating i-recommend for future researches. And then my last slide was thank you. And I also provided the email addresses of the authors, yung email address ko and yung email address ng co-author ko. So basically, ganun lang naman. Napakasimple lang gumawa ng PowerPoint presentation kapag tayo ay nagpe-present ng ating research paper. Hindi siya masyadong mahirap. Actually, it would just take 10 slides to 12 slides, no? Hindi naman kailangan mahaba. Basta kasi you also have a limited time in presenting. So, you just have to maximize everything. So, kung kasya lahat sa isang slide, pagkasyahin natin para hindi tayo nasa stress na paano natin pagkakasyahin yung, for example, naka 30 slides ka in just 15 minutes. So, isiksik natin siya hanggat maaari, no? So, I will also show you my research presentation in the international seminar using that PowerPoint presentation. So, let us watch this video recording that I did. Good day, everyone. This is Micah Jane A. Santiago, an educator from Division of Quezon City and a graduate of De La Salle Araneta University. Reading comprehension is an essential skill to gain access to a variety of information. This skill helps students to obtain information from books, magazines, and scientific articles. Reading can provide good models for English writing as well as opportunities to study vocabulary, grammar, punctuation, and the way to build sentences, paragraphs, and texts. Reading is important for the students to master the required competencies before moving to the next grade level under the K-12 curriculum, since we follow the spiral progression. In the Philippines, poor levels of reading comprehension among school learners in most public schools are a great concern. English teachers often use the conventional method to teach reading. This kind of method can result in boredom of students. Thus, To contribute a little in resolving this issue, this study, spicing up the teaching of reading through Kagan cooperative learning approach, was conducted. The dilemma of poor reading comprehension level of students is not only deeply felt in my school, but also in the Philippine educational system. Decades of reforms and millions of pesos had been spent waging against it, but it is like a cancer plaguing the system. A lot of studies and literature like Amadi et al., Nava et al., and Cristobal prove to us that reading is essential. Numerous programs on developing Filipino children's capacity to read had been undertaken by the Department of Education. This includes the Every Child a Reader program or ECARP, the mother tongue based multilingual education, and other school based activities. The Education for All National Review Report noted the increasing numbers of illiterate children, youth, and adults in the country. With that, teachers felt the need to produce a reading intervention program and module that would help the struggling readers as well as to improve the practice of teaching reading given the situation at hand. In the process of studying a suitable method for improving the reading comprehension of the students, I have realized the need to involve the students in a classroom reading intervention. This is where I learned about the Kagan Cooperative Learning or KCL approach. The theoretical perspective underlying and guiding research on KCL approach is social learning theory. This theoretical route provides insight as to why students in KCL groups learn more effectively than those exposed to conventional teacher-fronted classroom instruction. In KCL approach, students are accountable for their own learning as well as for their teammates. The teacher's responsibility is to act as a guide or facilitator. He is the one who controls the learning environment, designs classroom activities, and employ different strategies to carry out learning activities. In addition, teachers should also provide means to create interaction among the students in the classroom to produce positive learning outcomes. The three KCL strategies used in this study are think, pair, share, three-step interview, and gallery walk. Think, pair, share, or TPS, helps learner to develop and promote higher level thinking. It encourages students to share and discuss ideas around a particular topic, issue, or problem. Three-step interview or TSI is an effective strategy to generate ideas in the classroom. It helps students to ask and take notes on various questions. Lastly, Gallery Walk or GW allows students to be actively engaged as they walk throughout the classroom. In the pre-implementation phase, results of pretest were used as basis for the intervention. The Philippine Informal Reading Intervention or PhilERI pretest in English were administered to grade 7 students, after which their grade reading levels were identified. This study catered to students who have grade 4 reading level and below. After gathering the data describing the students' reading performance, the identified struggling readers underwent a reading intervention program called Project PIES, which means positive interdependence, individual accountability, equal participation, and simultaneous interaction. The acronym was derived from the basic elements of Kagan cooperative learning approach. During the intervention program, struggling readers were asked to work individually, in pairs, or even in small groups. They were also asked to write journal entries every session, which served as feedbacks on how they perceive the embedded KCL strategies they did during the session. The post-implementation phase includes the evaluation of the KCL module through the administration of Phil Erie post-tests. In addition, a survey and focus group discussion was also conducted to evaluate the material used. The specific problems of this research are as follows. Is there a significant change in the reading level of student participants before and after the intervention? How did the student participants manifest their reading abilities during the following Kagan cooperative learning strategies? Think, pair, share, three-step interview, and gallery walk. How do the student participants perceive the experience of using Kagan Cooperative or KCL module? This study is an action research using quasi-experimental multiple case study approach. Quantitative data were obtained from the Phil Erie pre-test and post-test, and from the survey questionnaire on perceptions. On the other hand, qualitative data were gathered from the focus group discussions. The research participants were based on the Phil Erie pretest. 5 grade 7 students were purposively selected. They were classified as struggling readers because of their grade 4 reading level. The pretest and post-test instruments came from the Phil Erie 2018 package. The KCL module was a researcher-made, and the creation of it was based on the reading level of the student participants. The said module was also evaluated based on the perceptions of the student participants using instructional materials survey questionnaire from J.M. Keller in Florida State University. A focus group discussion was conducted in which the gathered data were transcribed and analyzed thematically. To answer the first research question, based on the data gathered after conducting the program intervention, it exhibits that there is a significant difference between the pretest and post-test scores of the struggling readers, translating to an improved reading level among the student participants after the program intervention. The table on your screen indicated the mean of the pretest and post-test scores of the 5 student participants. It exhibits the significant difference between the two tests using the Wilcoxon-signed rank test. To answer the second research question, based on our observation, the student participants were more engaged during the integration of gallery walk strategy. They were more interested when we introduced the strategy since they were able to see pictures like they were in a museum. Communication skills were also enhanced because they were free to talk about their ideas with their classmates. Lastly, to answer the third research question, the student participants responded favorably on the use of Kagan Cooperative Learning Module and the Program Intervention Project PIES. The data was based on the survey questionnaire conducted. Student participants strongly agreed that after working on KCL module, they were confident to pass the test on it. The appearance of the whole KCL module, including the stories, pictures, and examples, gained positive impact to the student participants. Also, they strongly agree that completing the module will help them become a better reader. The KCL module in teaching reading helped me improve my own teaching practices. One challenge in employing the KCL module is the additional burden, the preparation of the materials, and other learning activities. Extensive adaptation of this strategy, particularly in a public school setting, is still a great challenge for both teachers and students. However, this research could be of help in suggesting ways to relieve the difficulties in students' reading skills and teachers' practice of teaching reading. I would highly suggest that the next cycle of this research will include other grade levels. Other Kagan cooperative learning strategies can also be explored in creating a new reading intervention module or program. Since we are in the new normal of education, the use of technology can also be added for further improvement of the module by making it electronic. We must work together in motivating the students to reading and providing ample opportunities for them to practice their reading skills. We must inculcate the value of reading to help the students achieve a better way of life outside the classroom. With that, thank you so much for listening, and I hope this presentation encourage everyone to pass on the love of reading to our students. Mabuhay! Ayan. So I hope na-inspire din kayong gumawa or sumali sa mga research conferences, kahit local conferences lang, i-present yung inyong mga research paper. And just a trivia about it, with that presentation, I won the Best Presenter Award in that room. No? So kasi in research conferences, we are divided into several rooms. So dun sa room na naka-assign sa akin, I actually won the Best Presenter Award. So I hope that I will be seeing most of you sa ating mga international conferences para naman maging best presenters din tayo. No? So if you want to have access on my presentation, then you can scan the QR code for my webinar presentation. No? It's a Canva presentation. And also if you want to rewatch the recorded research presentation, you can also scan the QR code. So para madali nating ma-access if you want to make it as a sample na for perhaps one of these days maka-join kayo sa mga presentation and then you want to look for a guide, then you can have my presentation as a sample. And also you can email me kung may questions kayo or if you want help or samples ng mga presentations or even pwede tayong mag-collaborate sa mga future researches. You can you can send me an email. I have here my email address on the screen and also my social media for Facebook. You can also send me a message through Messenger. So with that, thank you so much, Sorsogon State University. Thank you for this opportunity, and I hope you learned something from my discussion about research presentation. And I still hope to see you on next Saturday for poster presentation and how to make poster presentation whenever we feel like joining international or local conferences na poster naman yung ipe-present natin. Again, thank you so much, Sorsogon State University. And for the questions, I will try my very best to answer them after this presentation during the Q&A portion. So maraming salamat po and magandang araw po ulit sa inyong lahat.